not full of great highlights, but it was a great rebounding game, and the Carlton side were much better at rebounding the mistakes that Geelong were making in their forward line. They had running players who played...
Yeah, what is rebound?
When the ball comes on the mistakes and when it drops down from the pack...
You don't get dirty
I just wanted you to know.
Calm down.
Normally, rebounding is a word that most people understand.
Well, Jack wanted to know too.
Were Geelong a little overconfident after last week?
No, Geelong unfortunately got... I feel that they were unbalanced. Completely unbalanced when Bruns, who should have marked the ball and shouldn't have been hurt actually, he had the ball in his hands and dropped it, and then when he went down there was a collision and...
Deliberate?
No, it's just one of those things that happened. And then Michael Turner, who was playing quite well, two of their really good running players were taken from the ground very early, and that really cost them the mobility that Carlton had and played extremely well with, because there were Carlton fellas streaming down the ground without much effort of their own. There wasn't. Didn't you think
any
that's
pressure put on them, was there?
Yes, no, there wasn't a lot of pressure put on the Carlton players, and as you say, Geelong were criticised for their top heaviness, and that was brought about by what you've said, those two mobile players going off the ground.
I do think that they shifted Stephen Lunn into the wrong position also, because he was one of the real runners of the side, and they're trying to play him on the half-back flank, which is not his position.
Carlton did very well to quell the spirit of the two very prominent players in Geelong's lineup last week. That's Mossop, who started off very well, and they were absolutely nonplussed by Mossop. They gave him a lot of attention and gave him free kicks, and he was obvious. Well, he was shifted because of Fitzpatrick's dominance in the ruck. Fitzpatrick, as Jack said, the three prominent ruckmen in the league this year have been average-sized blokes who can use their bodies, and that's John Mossop, who has had a fantastic season, Fitzpatrick and Ron Alexander. And Fitzpatrick did take the rucks apart, and I thought that they might have even put Johnson onto the ball, because he's a high-leaping sort of player. It would have been a move worthwhile having an attempt, considering, because I don't care what you say, when you play in a final football, to drop marks like Johnson and Rodney Blake did in that game, uncontested, is unforgivable. And they are good players and they've got the skill to do it, but they would be, you know, very much to blame for Geelong's downfall, which started the slide, because they dropped easy marks and that spread through a side. That demoralises the side.
Agree after half-time it was a pretty dispirited effort by Geelong. It looked as though half of them weren't going in hard enough after half-time, I'm talking about.
No, they were three-quarter after in the last quarter, perhaps a little.
Well, it was a foregone conclusion at half-time by looking at the two sides playing.
Geelong were in front with about 5 minutes to go before the end of the third quarter,
They were 5 points in front at half-time, Carlton going easy.
Going easy?
I reckon they were.
Didn't Geelong get in the front in the third quarter?
They did get in the front, but they weren't playing well. It amazed me that Carlton weren't further in front, because they were playing far the better football, and they were handling the ball a lot more sure than Geelong too, all day. And you've said that before, Sam.
I did. I'm not trying to bunk Geelong up. What I'm saying, the Geelong players have got to realise that while they're very good footballers and have the ability to be good footballers, a champion is a footballer that can come out and play at 75% of his ability every week and not go missing like half of them did last week, and can win them the game the week before. And Bill Goggin would have a tremendous worry that they haven't got the maturity to come out and play consistent and strong competitive football
now listen,
every week.
You're too hard for this. How can you get players to defeat or to get kicks against that very strong back line of Carlton? It was magnificent. Dool, there was McConville, English, and even Perovic, after he settled down, got on top of Mossop.
Well, but this is the dissy. Perovic was lucky not to be taken.
Well, he wasn't taken
off. But he was lucky enough to be taken from the ground.
But the coach persevered with him, didn't he?
That's what I'm saying. That's the difference in coaching styles. He did persevere with Perovic, and he did play reasonably. He did play quite well.
He probably didn't have anyone else to shift back there.
He could have shifted Southby in the early part, because Southby hadn't gone off the ground till the second quarter.
In fairness to Reynoldsson, he injured his hip and had some pain-killing injections.
There's no excuse for that.
Well, look,
it's the second time the Dool's taken him apart.
It's the third time. He's killed him 3 times. I'm just saying, in fairness to him, he did have some
Once you're out there, Sam, once you're out there, baby, you're fair game.
I did hear you say that they had two off and 4 injured, Colin, and that was an excuse for him
I didn't
earlier.
mention that in the call.
You did
Geelong,
so?
No, I didn't.
Geelong
When
played
Jack
with
was talking about
I just said it was a gutsy go by Collingwood.
Geelong played with 18 men. They had their 2 interchange players on the ground in the first quarter of an hour of the game. Didn't have any.
There was a few Geelong players that lacked a bit of going hard
I couldn't
effort.
agree with you more. It was a dismal.
Bob won't admit that.
Yes, he will. It was a dismal performance by
Well, I'll
Geelong.
tell you, Blake, for a start, didn't show enough initiative all day.
Tell me, we're concentrating a lot on Geelong.
Yes.
I think we're overlooking the fact
Well,
that it's a pretty good side one.
Carlton are a fantastic team. Their backline's magnificent. Duel is superb.
Is the premiership over?
No.
Well, listen, no premiership's ever over, but they are in the box seat to win it because they're a football team. They're a combination. And they've got the only thing that'll kill Carlton, you know what'll kill them?
Desperation.
No, not desperation. It's overconfidence because they do fancy themselves
They
a
were
bit.
very fortunate, Carlton, that
never
there
tried
wasn't
the
a-
other side.
No, it hasn't really.
They were very fortunate
Desperation.
that Collingwood and Fitzroy didn't draw, because that would have meant they would have played 2 games in 5 weeks, and that's about the only thing that may stop them, may have stopped them. They've only played 2 games in 4 weeks as it is, but Fitzpatrick and Duel...
Fitzpatrick is the key to the whole thing.
He's a beautiful. He's having his best season ever.
Because
since
he's
he
got
got
his
hurt.
road squad, but he's got some brains. He's a palmer and he knows how to read the game. He just doesn't go...
And,
hit and miss.
and is there any better ruckman that can position his body? Well, can they position their body better than he can?
Well, he's had to do that by choice.
Because of the lack of size.
By
right.
choice,
Was a
because
beautiful
of his lack of size.
And you're forgetting another thing too. Their small players are superb. There's Johnson and even Bazasto.
Carlton.
Bob's up at the right time to kick goals when they need him. That's a very
Anyone
important
can do
feature
that
in a
on a good
final match.
side.
Lou, Carlton would much
When you're on a
rather at
bad
this
side,
stage
you
would you
can't
say
do it.
meet Geelong on Saturday week than meet Collingwood. Would you
Well,
say
I
that?
think that Collingwood would have... I don't think at the moment Collingwood could beat them, but one thing Collingwood's got in their favour, they've got a psychological effect on them. We're talking about football psychology. They've beaten them twice this year.
And they play well against
Well,
Carlton.
they
don't
usually do, but we know what Collingwood do in grand finals. Plus the fact that Carlton are going to have a rest and Collingwood may not have a proper side. It'll be a tough game for Collingwood next week against Geelong. Geelong won't play as badly as that.
We'll come back to that in just a moment. Lou, how did you vote in yesterday's game?
Well, it was very difficult. I gave all Carlton players. You could have named 7 Carlton players in your 3 best players easily. I gave 1 vote to Sheldon. I thought he and Peake had a tremendous performance, but I felt that he finally got on top of Peake at the end and was a very effective player in that last quarter. I gave 2 votes to Doyle, a magnificent game, and he never gets, this fella never, well, he gets better every year, and he's cool, calm and collected, and is a perfect defender. He even sacrifices his own game, then he becomes an attacking player, and I gave the best player on the ground, I think it's another great performer. He's one of the best back pockets in the league at the moment, no doubt.
Well, don't say we're not objective about this. I gave 3 Carlton players votes. I gave 1 to Michael
It's a
Fitzpatrick.
guilty conscience if you say that.
No, it's not. You were saying.
Why did
that-
you mention it?
Because you were saying that I was. We weren't talking about. We weren't talking about.
You-
No,
you
we had 1 to
even-
Michael.
He inferred he was a...
1 to Michael
one-eyed.
Fitzpatrick, who is a class ruckman, and he's probably the key to their success. 2 to Malin, who played on the wing. I thought he came in and out of the play for 4 consistent quarters, and I gave 3 to Bruce Dool, who had a very good day at centre half pack and is a champion.
Good work.
Okay, Bob.
And indeed, I gave 3 Carlton players the votes too. You see,
that's
so
the
there
end,
you
Jack,
are.
Aren't they loyal?
Yeah.
These
Never
fellas?
thought I'd see the day.
Oh, how are they?
I think I gave 1 vote to Malin, who...
No wonder you
after
can't
a-
win games down there.
After a slow start, I just thought I'd do it for you, Jack, just to prove that we could do it in good grace. I hated doing it, to be
That's
perfectly
team spirit.
truthful, but
Players
Malin...
didn't even get a drink after the match last night. Billy Goggin put him in the bus and sent him straight home.
And rightly so.
So,
I don't think that makes a difference for next week's match.
Of course it
I
does.
had Malin's
Sit
Around
Malin the
laughing and
vote, I
drinking
gave
beer
Dool
and
the
pies
vote.
after you've been beaten.
Yeah.
That's the best thing you can do is put them in the bus. Sorry.
Yeah, and I gave Glasgow, who I thought played very
Yeah,
well
did too, Bob.
on the wing, an excellent game. So
Beat Whitman.
Who?
Whitcomb.
Whitcomb had a
Ordinary day.
very ordinary day, as Robert Neal did, and
Robert Neal
Mark
had that.
Boss.
Robert
There were a
Neal.
lot of them had very
Let's see
ordinary
how the
days.
votes tally for actual commentators. Bruce Dill got 7, and all Carlton players, in the opinion of our well-spoken comers.
Kid won 2, Glasgow, I'm not kidding.
Right, well, we'll be back to talk about next week's encounter in just a moment.
Oh, Jeff, have you got a vote?